Hello guys, good afternoon. It is a lovely sunny day. I've got the shades on, we're in the sunshine, everything is good. We're going to be talking today though about a really interesting and I would say quite serious discussion regarding university. I'm going to be speaking about how for a lot of young people, university here in the UK can actually influence their life in some ways for the worse. Now, before we get into this discussion, I want to actually highlight what has brought this video about by sharing my experience and a few other important pieces of information to note. So, I have been in university for 3 years now. I'm in my third year of university as we speak. That is the reason why I've decided to title or speak about specifically university in the UK. I was born in the UK, I was raised in the UK, I'm a British citizen and I consider myself to be British, even if perhaps not by the traditional sense. So, I want to speak about an experience that I understand. I could make a video speaking about university in the US, but it might not be as well informed. I've been to university in the UK, and I want to speak on this. Going back to my experience quickly, I am a third year student. I had a gap year last year where I went out to work. I worked in a job. I travelled a bit as well, around Europe specifically. It was a really interesting experience. So some people might say I should have got on with it and just got it out of the way. I'm actually really glad that I did it the way I did, because it's funny, everything shapes your mind in a certain way and you gain specific insights which give you more of an understanding of things. So coming back to university in the UK, as of really about a couple of weeks ago, I've rejoined my course, and I've been interacting with people. Obviously, I've been doing the lectures and seminars and all that sort of stuff. Cool. I was speaking to a friend the other day, and that's what brought this video about life after university, because me having a gap year, all of my friends who I met at university have done either one of two things. They're either graduating and getting jobs, or perhaps even graduating and just not getting jobs, whatever. So they're either graduating and moving into the world in some way, shape or form, or they've dropped out and they're dealing with the consequences of that. So in a way, I'm the only one of my existing university friend group who is still studying, bar people who are doing a master's, which I do have a few friends that are going down that route. So I was speaking to a friend who is no longer a student about how life is. Bear in mind, I've had a year of not being a student and life is so different. And we were speaking about accommodations going forwards. This person was telling me how you can't really find decent accommodation in the city centre for a reasonable price. And that made me think about the way that university is structured. Now I'm going to tie this all back together. This is going to be an interesting video if you guys can stay around for all of it. It's a really big topic, so it might be like 10, 15, 20 minutes long, this video, but trust me, it's all going to make sense. I want to start on that topic of accommodation because it speaks to a broader point. Students in the UK, because of the way that most campuses and universities are, the campus, the university itself, is located generally in the city centre. It's true in the city that I'm studying in. It's true in most of the cities in the UK that I've been to. A direct consequence of this, student accommodation is in the city centre or nearby. Of course, that's not going to be true for every city, but it's basically true for most. Most people go to university when they're about 18. The general path of progression is that you finish school, finish college, and then you go on to university. It's almost just a natural thing that you do. So a lot of these people come out of college, go into university without having any real life experience. So they're 18. They've gotten to a point where they're living in a student accommodation, which again is a city centre property. This is going to become important in a minute. So they're living in a city centre property, and here is another big thing, the student loan. Now, I'm going to say it, I took my student loan. I think the student loan is a very, very essential part of studying in a way, in the sense that maintenance loan, a lot of people will need that to survive on, and having a full-time job as well as studying for a lot of people may not make as much sense. So I understand it, but this is all context to the bigger point, right? So you're 18 or 19, let's say. You're in a place in the city centre. You are being paid enough to live on. So what that means is that everything is free, because money that is earned, be that through a business, be that through a job, whatever you want to say, money that is earned is generally effort in result out, and of course the result is money. So yes, some jobs are easier than others, but you still have to put effort in. Being a university student, all you have to do is turn up to your lectures, so it's no different than school, which you've been attending for at this point, 13 years anyway, or maybe even more, or maybe less, I don't know. So you've been studying anyway, now you're getting paid for nothing. You're able to live in a student accommodation, you're able to, generally, not always of course, but you are generally able to go out and have fun, you have an abundance of free time. Why is this important to my broad point? Because we come to 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, where we get to graduation age, or where we've dropped out, or whatever you want to say. You've finished university in some way, shape or form, and life completely flips. And a lot of people that I know are realising this. When I had my gap year, I realised this, and we'll get to that in a sec. No longer do you have free money. You're lucky if your parents will support you, and that's if you even want to move back in with them. You do not get any sort of council tax deductions or anything that you might get when studying, when you're an adult in the real world. So your money goes less far. At the same time, you have to work for that money. So what does that mean? It means that you have to either have a job, you have to either have a business, or possibly even both. Let's assume that you go down the most common route, which is going to be a 9 to 5. That means that most of your time that you would have spent, let's be honest, because I know a lot of students, most of the time that you would have spent, let's say, playing FIFA on the Xbox is now at work. And you'll be lucky if you can have a Wednesday night clubbing, because that just is not a thing for most adults. You get your Friday and Saturday night if you're lucky. Maybe your Saturday, considering how tired you might be from work. So a lot of 21, 22-year-olds are absolutely shocked, and I've seen this happen in life, when they graduate. Because assuming that everything even goes well, right? This is the best case scenario, bear in mind. You get a graduate job, which in today's day and age is not that easy. So we'll assume that you get a graduate job in a good field and it's well paid. Well, first you have to sacrifice 40 plus hours of your week. Now, to my adult audience, this is going to sound normal, but I'm explaining how this messes people up, right? So you have to sacrifice 40 hours a week or so, maybe more as a graduate, because your company will likely expect a lot from you. So 40, 50 hours a week is sacrificed. That's okay, but it's a reality. Your living costs are not subsidized. At the same time, you lose a lot of free time. The social element, it can still be there, but it's not the same as when you're a student. A lot of the safety parameters which you get to experience as a student disappear. Now I want to tie this back into why this is so detrimental. Because I know it's, well, in my own head where I'm saying this, it sounds like I'm going on a bit of a rant. You know, comment in the comment section if you're still watching at 8 minutes and 5, to see if this makes any sense. What am I trying to say here though? Well, my broader point is basically this. You come to this adult age, this big age, and what happens in life? Everything flips. The reality of this is, and this is where it gets interesting to me at least, and this brings me back to my initial point of 22, 23-year-olds, people that I'm speaking to, like, oh, city centre accommodation is so expensive and this and that. This is all going to tie in. I know it's a long video, but there is a huge point here, so I want to explain this in the fullest detail that I can. They get to 18, then they get to 20, 21, 23. They graduate, and then life becomes a shock. Because they've been from aged 18 in a student accommodation or a house or whatever with their friends and whatever, and it's basically, let's be honest, it's basically free. Yes, you pay it off later, but it's free for now. When they come into the real world and realise that city centre accommodation in, I'm going to say Manchester, for example, where a lot of my friends are looking to live, is at least £1,000 a month. And as a student, it might have been, what, 550, 657 at highest, you know. You could easily get a student place for like 450. When they come to realise it's 750 minimum, they're like, oh, you know. But here is why this is so detrimental. And I'm not even talking about the course content or anything like that, because that's a completely separate point, and that's not where I want to speak about. I want to speak about the lifestyle impact of this. They come into an adult life, they come into adult age, and then they realise that they couldn't have afforded this lifestyle in the first place. Now compare this to someone who has not been a student. Let's say you're your average 22-year-old, right? And we'll assume that you're living life right. And of course, that's going to be a very subjective term. But what I mean by that is you're taking responsibility for your age. You're taking responsibility for your responsibilities. Maybe you've got a car. Maybe you've got a place to live in. I don't want to necessarily say a house, because a house is very expensive. You are now of the understanding, if you have lived the natural path versus the uni life, you understand that this is a game where you work your way up. And it's really funny because I always knew this based on how I grew up as a child. But bear in mind, a lot of university students are from middle class families. Not all, of course, a lot are from working class families, but a lot are from middle class families. So they've come out of, we'll say, mummy and daddy's house, right? Which is probably a pretty decent place anyway. They've come into a relatively okay student accommodation. It's free, life is fun, life is easy. And they live 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, depending on what degree or whatever, maybe more, having this super fun life, this super easy life. This is exceptionally paradoxical to the reality of life. When I had my gap year, whilst I did have the privilege of, and I'm going to call it a privilege, of doing some travelling, some adventuring, I also had to work. I had my job that I worked, and I've spoken about that before, and I'll speak about it again. But I also ran my own business, and to be honest, I made significantly more, and I still do, in my business than I would in any job. It doesn't matter how I did it. I had to make money. And I guess that's coming from a working class background and understanding of that anyway, but a lot of these kids who are especially middle class, they do this uni thing, then when they get kicked into the real world, it completely shocks them, because not only have they got, what they really have is they have an overinflated understanding of lifestyle. For most 22-year-olds, let's say, even if they're from middle class families and they go straight into work, they understand that your first place is going to be quite poor quality or bad. They understand that your first job is going to require a lot from you generally, because these people, these workplaces, let's say, they know that you've not got experience, and your way of kind of paying that back is by not having days off, by not turning down overtime or extra shifts. That's kind of your way of keeping that job in a lot of cases. So people who've not done a degree understand this. They've maybe moved out of their parents' house, or maybe they still live at home, but they have a plan to move out of their parents' house. They understand that it's a grind to get there. They understand that you get the best place that you can to live in, and then you work your way up. They understand that you get perhaps the cheapest car that you can, and then you work your way up. They understand that middle word, work. I'm sat in my university classes now. I know it's not that big. If you're like 40 or 50 and you're watching my videos, I know I'm still a child to you guys. I don't want to make it sound like I know everything. I don't. But I know some things. I know a little bit. I'm trying to learn. So I'm sat in my university classes now. Maybe these people are maybe 1 year younger than me, so they might be 20 years old, I'm 21. And I see what they do with their spare time. They're still clubbing, they're still partying, they are still sat at home playing FIFA in their spare time. And it's funny because I sit there now and I know something different. I know, man, you need to pick the ideas up, because in 6 to 12 months, you guys are going to get a shock. And it is unavoidable. Even if you get the perfect path of a graduate job, you are going to be in for a shock, because you've not experienced the traditional path of working your way up. Now I know people who have graduated or even have dropped out, which is even worse, because you've got even less of a privilege to speak about it. This is a truth. This is a truth. A degree is pretty worthless in 2024, 25, but at least you've got it. You can't not have the degree and expect the benefits of the degree. That's just basic common sense, I would say. So if you drop out, that's your choice, but be aware of the consequences is all I'm saying. So we've got people now, I know people now, who have dropped out, who have finished university, and they can't understand why they can't afford city centre property. They can't understand why everything's so expensive. They refuse to move into the places that they can afford. Or, because bear in mind it's one or the other, They either refuse to move into cheaper places, or they refuse to take on the extra work required to move into a more expensive place. So for example, let's say the rent's £1,000 a month. You could A, get a place for 25% off, 50% off potentially, but it's going to be obviously a worse place in a worse location. Or you could work perhaps 50% more hard, whether that be in a business, in a job, whatever you want to say. Now I know neither of these are, you could say, ideal, but life is life. However, this is what's naturally going to happen when you delay your responsibilities. We're moving our 18-year-olds into first-class 5-star accommodation that they would never be able to afford if it wasn't subsidised and paid off. They would never be able to afford it. We're giving them a lifestyle that rich people achieve. And what I mean by that is, look, I'll give you my timetable actually right now. I'm in university 3 days a week. Having a 3-day work week where on 2 of the days you're only in for 2 hours is what rich people do. People who've worked exceptionally hard in a business for 5-10 years. There's not that many people who have a 2-day working week ever. Or perhaps a 3-day working week, 2 hours one day. The total time is 6 hours. Who has a 6-hour working week? Nobody. So we give all these people all this money, we make them do so little for it, and then they come out into the real world and everything seems to be overinflated. Of course. This is not the way that anybody has ever been able to live. Full stop. And I always knew this, like I say. But as someone who's been a student myself, and has enjoyed some mid-week nights out, some Wednesdays off, let's say, or something random like that, I always was of the belief that that this was going to hit hard when it wasn't the case anymore. But seeing how very hard it hits just acknowledges how damaging this is to our young people. Because again, you get paid enough. Half of people, maybe even more than that, I'd say more than that, don't need a job whilst they're a student. They live in a place that they couldn't live in otherwise. And it's a really nice experience that people get this. I'm not hating on it. I've lived it. I've used the chance as well. So I refuse to say otherwise. I'm not going to lie to you. I've done it myself. At the same time, though, as someone who's then gone on to work and come back and now sees it in a different light, I see how damaging this is for our young people, without them knowing it. As someone who's now looking to get a new job, I run a business as well, I understand that all of those things can be afforded. You want a 5-star flat in the city centre? Cool, that can be done, but you've got to do something to do it. You want to have 4 days off a week, 3 days off a week? Cool, but you've got to do something to do it. I understand that, and that's okay. And I want to make the counter argument, and I don't know if you guys are going to watch this whole video. If you've watched it all the way till the end, let me know. I don't know if you guys are going to watch it, but I want to make the counter argument. I probably should have done this earlier in the video, but this is kind of what happens when you make natural videos. I don't use a script, I just tell you what I'm thinking. What am I trying to say now? This is why you need a script. The way that people overtake on this road is crazy. I'm just parked up. Anyway, let's get back to the topic. So when you understand that this is what needs to be done, you work harder. And I do understand as the counter argument that many student accommodations are not good. I understand that many student accommodations are poor quality, mouldy, bad landlords, bad conditions. Yes, I'm not going to say otherwise. So I know some people are going to be in the comments saying, that's not true, my student accommodation was... Yeah, I know, I'm aware of that. And I understand that not every student is entitled. I understand that many students have a job, full-time job. I know students, I was speaking to one yesterday, who's coming to do the work, leaving, going to work, finishing work at 12 p.m. midnight, 12 a.m. midnight, I should say, and then I don't know, maybe 6 hours of sleep considering travel and everything, then doing the same thing again. So of course, not true for everybody. But let's be honest, especially for a lot of our UK domestic students who have especially come from middle class families and then gone to live this luxury life, drinking, partying, chilling, playing Xbox, whatever, and getting paid for it. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, I'm just highlighting the other side of it. They come into the world and they get a real shock. They do. Because you guys know, if you're 25 or older and you live by yourself, you guys know. Your living expenses are at least, and this is being very, very conservative, $1,500 a month. At the very least. At the very least. $1,500 a month. Maybe realistically $2,000. $2,000 a month. As a single man, or maybe someone with a partner. Rent, council tax, car. And obviously some of these are subjective costs. But yeah, these people get a shock. I'm seeing it in my own life. And I just sit there in class now, I'm like, you guys need to be panicking. If you're a third year student and you're doing a degree, you should be panicking. Especially if you're doing what I'm doing, which is a business degree. Build a business. Quick. Because no matter how you look at it, these guys are going to get shocked when they realise that 40 hours a week is what you need to earn a living. Or if you don't want to work 40 hours, you need immense stress through running a business like I do. You know, I'm happier for running my business, I'm not going to lie, but I do think I'm probably more stressed. That's fine, I couldn't care less. You pick your struggle, but you do have to pick a struggle. So, that's probably the biggest way I'd say that university in the UK is detrimental for the students themselves. Take away anything to do with the studying, the course content. We could talk about that. That's a different topic, though. I don't need to discuss that right now. I just want to talk about the lifestyle that it creates. It creates a lifestyle where people believe that the average day-to-day is going to be 2-3 hours of work, and then just go partying, go clubbing, don't turn up if you don't want to, and that couldn't be further from the truth, guys. It couldn't. Life is hard, and that's okay. Life can become very easy. You guys who are 30, 40 now, 50 maybe, I know from what I hear from you, a lot of you guys are reaping the benefits. Why can I not say that statement? This is the second video in a row that I couldn't say this. You're reaping the rewards of your lifestyle. You worked hard in your 20s, maybe you paid down your house, maybe you built up 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 grand in cash. You got in good shape, you travelled, you moved abroad, you built a business. Success is different things to different people, but you guys became successful by your own measures. And now you're reaping the benefits of your reward. What? No, I can't say it, guys. You're reaping the rewards of your lifestyle. There we go. And that's great. I love you guys. And I like to hear your success stories. But what I'm saying is, for my 20, 30-year-olds, you guys already know. For my late teen viewers and early 20s viewers, just be aware that this is how life flips when you're not a student anymore. And just be aware that you cannot expect city centre accommodation. You cannot expect bills included always. You cannot expect not to have to pay certain taxes. And you cannot expect to live a life where you can have exceptional amounts of free time without at least some sort of a repercussion. University, in some ways, provides a sort of lifestyle that retirement does. Fun. I don't want to say free, because you do pay for retirement by working your whole life. But we're going to use, for want of a better phrase, free, or at least prepaid. Yeah, that's a better word. Fun, prepaid, do what you like. University and retirement. The difference is, one is a consequence of the lifestyle you've lived, and one delays the lifestyle that you need to start living. Tell me if you agree or disagree, guys. I've been talking for the best part of half an hour, but it's a topic that I know a lot about because I've lived it. I've been really lucky in the sense that I've had a gap year. I've worked. I've seen the world of work. I've obviously been running my business now for a few years, but I've took it really hard this year. And again, now speaking to my friends who are graduates, who are dropouts, now looking at my life and what I expect, what people expect, this seems to be one of the biggest things damaging students or young people. The way that the system's set up to allow, to create an illusion that hard work is not required for a lifestyle. You know, you got your first place as a independent adult is going to be quite crap. We might have roof leaks, we might have bad landlords, we might have bad neighbours, we might be in a poor area of town. You guys know that's true. Your first car, or your first couple cars even. I mean, I think I've struck it lucky by getting what I consider to be a nice car, but your first car is going to be crap, you know. My first car was a 2008 Volkswagen Polo that ended up blowing up, so it's a truth of life. And when you live that from a working class background, or when you've gone straight into work yourself, you understand it. When you're a student, this can be super detrimental. I don't want to repeat anything that I've said, guys, and I think I've really covered it all here. Thank you so much for spending the best part of half an hour with me. If you watched till the end, do drop me a comment, let me know. I just want to know if you guys like these half an hour long videos or if it's just a waste of time. Thank you, and I'll see you again.